Hello friends, welcome back to the James Allcott channel. First and foremost, let me just say, I know it's Monday and I know you might be feeling a little bit rough, but just take a deep breath, get yourself a coffee, and if you don't like coffee, get yourself a Coke Zero. They're great. Press on. Move forwards. You can do this. Good luck. On this week's Fallout, there were more goals than ever in the Premier League this week, the highest scoring game week, loads of interesting things to discuss. Of course, we're going to dive into how Hassenhutl has lost his job and why he's lost his job. James Maddison, should he be on the plane? We're going to talk about the problem with Chelsea, which is this. Oh, little tease there because it's blurred, isn't it? Talk about Arsenal, of course, as well, who get themselves another key victory, the Jekyll and Hyde nature of Liverpool and Tottenham. And we'll talk about how the sun is shining, firstly for Newcastle, who just aren't playing games, and Leeds United, who found a way to get themselves out of a rut this weekend. If you are new to the channel and you like this kind of stuff, the World Cup is on the horizon. I did want to talk to you guys for just a second because I'm going to the World Cup, and you guys know that the whole reason that's happening is because of you guys watching the channel. And honestly, I can't thank you enough for that. The World Cup is obviously a very awkward issue for a lot of people. And if you aren't getting involved in the World Cup, or, you know, whatever your view on it is, I totally respect it. And I'll see you guys after it. But for those of you who want to enjoy the World Cup content this year, I'm going to be making as much as possible. I'm going to be out there with Sky Sports News. And again, like, I've been working 12 years to try and work towards one day presenting the World Cup final. That is still an aim and a dream of mine. And this isn't that step, but it's the next step and one I've got to take. So I'm really, really excited for it. And as I say, I've got loads of stuff. You can see with the new microphone and all this stuff. I'm going to be trying to take as much stuff to Qatar so we can do live streams. We'll be doing the Fallout. I'll be doing as many match reactions as possible, trying to go to the games and trying to, you know, really, really, I nearly said dominate there, but I do. I want to smash it in terms of great content for you guys. So with that in mind, we've got loads of previews, basically deep dives on loads of the teams, the sort of runners and riders over the next few weeks. I think they're really, really beautifully put together. So hopefully you'll enjoy them. We'll have two to start off tomorrow, England and Brazil, but loads of countries there. And then also just a complete World Cup guide that will be coming on the channel soon. As I say, I'm going to try to go as many games as possible and do as much as possible so that I can, you know, utilize that opportunity that you guys have given me. So massive thank you to you guys, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. So I just wanted to let you guys know that it's really important for me to always be really transparent with you guys, and for you to know that, like, I'm just a guy who's trying to get somewhere, and you guys are sort of gently nudging me towards it. So thank you once again for the support. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to a World Cup because someone wants to hear me talk in front of a camera. So that is getting a little bit closer. So yeah, thanks again. Right, let's dive in. Southampton 1, Newcastle 4, the XG 1.74. And this is why XG is important to kind of have a look at. Look, we know, you know, I know that the reason I sort of say at the start of each game is that it does give that little, you know, indication under the hood of how the game played out, and if it was a 4-1 game, that's all it provides, right? So that's why I always say these numbers, just to say, because I know people get a bit annoyed about it. 1.74 to Southampton to 0.86 for Newcastle. And so when Trippier in his post-match interview is saying we're frustrated at that, that's not like flexing. That's him, you know, experiencing the game, obviously, and being fantastic in it, by the way, but them not being happy with their standards. And the XG shows that Southampton, and we'll get onto Hassenhutl, who looks like he's gone, may have gone by now. The big problem, of course, for them is scoring those goals. But ruthless Newcastle aren't here to play games. Now, believe it or not, Southampton could have won this match if they took a page out of Newcastle's book and became that little bit more ruthless with their finishing. There could have been something in this match for them. Confidence, obviously, is a huge part of that. And the way that the confidence has been built at Newcastle is very impressive. Built on a foundation of good defence, and then from there, gently improving. And you see it in so many of those players. Sean Longstaff, another great example, who's just got a little bit of a swagger about him at this moment in time. And that's not something that I thought I'd ever say about Sean Longstaff. So huge credit goes to Eddie Howe once again, but also those players as well, who are clearly, up for it, which is great. We can see from the shot map here that Southampton took a total of 16 shots worth a total of 1.74 XG, whilst Newcastle took 7 shots worth a total of 0.86 XG, and of course scored those 4 goals. And despite Southampton creating that larger XG total, it was Newcastle who created the most big chances, with 3 big chances created. This is the marker of the quality of the chances that Newcastle are making for themselves right now and throughout the season. And it's that they don't need to have wave after wave of attacks. We've spoken about this kind of Atletico Madrid style that he's putting forward here, because you've got players that are just so switched on. And when they do have those attacks, they stick forward past an opponent. They trust in the quality that their individuals have right now. Yes, they're having moments, and it's one for the comments, but it's one of those where when you're on that lovely run, Almiron, of course, he doesn't trip over, and he is able to get a leg at it, and he does get himself that goal. But at the same time, he does keep going, and he does have the confidence, and he does put it in that bottom corner. So it's just that concoction, isn't it, that we all know when our team is doing that a little bit better. There are those little moments where you go, oh, that's in our favour, but I'm going to keep quiet. So I'll keep quiet for a second longer as well. But the lack of defensive presence in front of Southampton's back 3 allowed Newcastle players to run at the Southampton defence, and this often created holes in which Newcastle could exploit. Great example, that Joe Willett goal. Now, look, Trippier goes and wins that ball, but then there is a huge space there, and the pass is fantastic. So what went wrong for Ralph Hassenhutl? It became a bit bland by the end at Southampton, let's be honest. And with Hassenhutl not really developing as a manager during his 4-year stint at the club, sort of the writing was on the wall a little bit. I mean, we joke about, like, if he'd lost 9-1, would he still be in the job? I mean, maybe not on this occasion, because despite a promising start at the club, I think he didn't grow as a manager enough during his time with the Saints, and that made it inevitable for staleness to set in. I mean, to stay at a club 4 years, that is a success in itself. But it did feel like there was a lack of new ideas, and it only ever felt like Hassenhutl had 2 real strategies at Southampton, either 4-2-2-2 or a 5 at the back, both of which were based around the same style of football. And Southampton's singular style meant that they became really, really predictable, and it demonstrated itself in the stats. Southampton have averaged 44.1% possession this season, which is the 4th lowest of any team. The problem with this metric is that Southampton aren't a team that were happy to concede possession in favour of a low block that a lot of teams often do. Think of Everton this season, for example. They became so sort of press-centric that it meant that they didn't have any other way of playing, and ultimately couldn't control matches. It's a big part of it. Are you concerned, or are they concerned about you? And the opposition weren't that concerned about Southampton. This is why they tend to concede late goals so often, this heavy press-centric style, which we've seen over the years with Southampton. Their style also made it really, really predictable for teams to play against. They knew exactly what to expect. This hurt Southampton as they have struggled in attack this season, and only Palace and Bournemouth have created less XG this season than Southampton. Everton 0, Leicester 2, 1.24 XG to 2.36 for Leicester City. And on the 28th of September, we predicted that James Maddison was going to be Leicester's Player of the Year. I've said on numerous occasions that he has to be in the England squad. He's been in my last 2 videos where I've spoken about the England squad. And the only question I have now is, which seat on the plane should he be having? Which seat? Because you can't not take him, can you? You just can't. The finishing ability, the output, the goals, the fact that he offers something different, the fact that it's a 26-man squad, he has to be on the plane. I'm not saying start him. I'm not. But this game of football that we watch these days, it's not about the 11. It's about, what is it now? The 16 that can play in a football match. And Maddison has so much. And he showed it all in this match. And he has to go. He's an absolute joy to watch at this moment in time. And I think also, is he running hot? Yeah, he's running hot. But sometimes when a player has, a contract running out at the end of the season and they're looking to get a new one or to get a new club, or like Salah last season, I think is a great example as well. You're just not really worried about anything else. You're just going for it and playing. And that is what Maddison's got. Maddison will be loving every second of every word that everyone is saying right now, you know, Lineker saying it on Match of the Day, you know, me saying it, me, but you know what I mean. And so that kind of personality is something to be enjoyed as well, and he has to be in the squad. You know, even Everton fans have to admit that he was unplayable for the 90 minutes. This was the epitome of a complete performance by Maddison, and we'll get to his stats a little bit later on. But one thing I really want to hone in on is his heat map and how it can be divided into two clear sections here, which is important to talk about, really, because you've got the attacking half and the defensive half. We can see that in the defensive half that he had discipline and often came back on defence to help Castagne in doubling up on Everton, on the Everton wingers, which is something that we've spoken about, the concern that you have with Castagne bombing on all the time for Leicester City. In that video where we spoke about how you fix Leicester City, we discussed that, and we needed to figure out a way to find the best out of Maddison, but also to sort of safeguard the team. But in the attacking half, Maddison was allowed to express himself, and he was given a licence to find pockets of space and to receive the ball in and around that crucial, glorious Zone 14. If you have a look at how prominent his touches were in Zone 14, he's a genius at finding space in that position at this moment in time. And if you name me another England player who can do this as well as he can, I'll do this. I'll tell you you're lying. Yeah. Let's have a look at his stats. So his stats: 4 chances created, passes into the final third 6, 67 touches, recovered the ball 3 times as well, importantly. Pass accuracy of 90% for a player playing in that 10 role is pretty impressive. It's really impressive. I mean, have a look at, say, Bruno Fernandes. And Bruno Fernandes takes those risky passes. It's fine. I'm not going to go at him. But I'm just saying that Maddison is just so... He's just on fire at this moment in time. And progressive passes received as well, 7. So he's finding really good spaces and they're able to find him as well. Not only are these stats impressive, but they're very, very positive for Leicester as a team as well. And coupled with Maddison's discipline in coming back on defence, it has led to Leicester's turning of the corner in terms of form, and with the squad in a good place generally. And I bet that they're now at a stage where they're wishing that the World Cup wasn't happening after the next game week. Everton really, really limp from Everton, if truth be told. Despite creating a few chances early on and showing positive signs in the final third, DCL squandered 3 chances and then went off injured, much to the displeasure, of course, of the Everton faithful, who are starting to lose a little bit of patience with him and his injury record, which obviously is really harsh, but you can understand the frustration. You got DCL, Onana and Idrissa Gueye all set to undergo scans today, I think it is. And dependent on what the results are, the World Cup can't come quick enough for Everton at this moment in time, who now only have 1 win in the last 6 after a nice little run.
Said you just got
Emery'd.
Said you just got
Emery'd.
You just got
Emery'd. Aston Villa 3-1. Man United 1, and 0.64 to 0.44. Oh yeah, if that's not Emery in XG, I don't know what is. The XG tells a real story here. The Unai Emery story. In big matches, Unai Emery has made a name for himself in setting up his teams to be hard to beat and prey on the weaknesses of the weak. Not the week, of the opposition. This is what Aston Villa did against Man United. A game state was yummy for them in terms of scoring the goals early on, but the way they went about it was fascinating, with one tactical aspect standing out massively: Jacob Ramsey's new position, which was mentioned on this channel when we did a video talking about Unai Emery and how he would set up. We said that Ramsey might, obviously, you know, and if you throw enough shit out there, some of it's going to be right, but let's celebrate those things, okay? That Ramsey might have a role at left midfield in this side. We weren't a million miles off. He started on the right. I know that's different. I'm aware that it's different. But can I just finish? He started on the right for Aston Villa against Man United, but the role turned out to be a real success for Ramsey as he offered his teammates a consistent outball. And in the latter stages of play, he was able to come in from the right into central areas, which we spoke about in that video. A great example of this was Aston Villa's first goal, in which Ramsey's movement went undetected by Man United, and he was easily able to take advantage. Now, when we talk about preying on the weaknesses of Man United, this is one of them. With Casemiro being the only natural defensive midfielder in the United lineup, it means he can't be everywhere at once. So Eriksen, who is amazing on the ball and in possession scenarios, he's not a natural defensive midfielder. And so we can see here how he doesn't cover the passing lane and he's just a little bit too square on. He's not aware of the run being made behind him, and his position doesn't inhibit anything from happening. In the second phase of this move, we can see another weakness get exposed. Martinez is brilliant, but he always wants to get tight, and sometimes it does go against him. He steps up here despite having no chance of getting to the ball before Ramsey, and this puts Martinez in a compromising position because he's square on, and Leon Bailey has already began his sprint, which makes it very, very difficult for him. So, barring a miracle of an interception, there's a clear space in behind to exploit, the gap left by Lindelof being it, and it's small things like this that we will see Aston Villa catch out a lot of teams this season. They have a meticulous manager in charge that has a knack of finding a team's weakness in preparation, and he's going to drill that into the side and let them know what they need to do to exploit it. Aston Villa's performance demonstrated that in this one, and I think we should expect to see that on a weekly basis from now on. Leeds United 4, Bournemouth 3, 2.16 to 1.47. Summerville makes it shine for Jesse Marsch. I've got to say, and I know it's back-to-back, and that's probably why, halfway through the game I was thinking, Leeds fans are going to turn on here. You can't be losing 3-1 to Bournemouth. Everyone, that is the Bournemouth, as much respect as I can give them. That's one of the teams that if you lose heavily to them, the manager's going to get some heat for that. It's just the way it is, right? But this is the second stomach-turning comeback Bournemouth have been on the end of in the space of a week. Bournemouth fans have a right to feel sorry for themselves, and this is something they need to keep an eye on, really, because their team have availed themselves brilliantly out on the pitch in the last two matches, but have crumbled at crucial times twice in a row. Credit where it's due, though. Some of the goals that they've scored recently, they're not by fluke, and they're born from a genuinely effective tactical approach that suits them as a team and something that they must stick with. But with Leeds' press not as intense as it should have been, it allowed Bournemouth defenders to throw long balls into the channels for Marcus Tavernier, who was a problem in this match. And a moment for Tavernier. Tavernier is Bournemouth's only source of open play creation at times, and he handles that role really, really well. With a goal and 2 assists, he had the beating of Christensen all day long. Christensen always likes to get on beyond, so there was that space in behind, and the ball in behind Christensen may be something teams look to exploit against Leeds, as he struggles when players have the run on him to make darting runs in behind. Bournemouth strikers are a problem for Leeds' defence, as Dom Solanke would often make the front post run or make a channel run, which meant that Liam Cooper often stuck with him and tracked his run. The problem with this is that Solanke isn't Bournemouth's sole striker, and when Solanke made those runs, Kiefer Moore would peel to the back post, creating a massive gap in the half defence, and Philip Billing profited from this as he scored Bournemouth's second. So how did Leeds turn it around? It took some cojones, some juicy moves from Jesse Marsch to turn this game around, because with his side going 3-1 down early in the third quarter, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. And you would have thought that that third goal was the nail in the coffin for Leeds, but this wasn't the case. Not with Jesse. Big substitutions. Substitutions of Nonto and Greenwood played an important part, huge part in turning the match around. And credit has to go to Jesse Marsch for making these subs as he rolled the dice. He really, really did. And he was forced to roll them, sure, but he rolled them all the same. An individual that needs praise again this week is Cisencio Summerville, who made it shine. With another goal to his name, he is proving to many this season that he has a place in the Premier League and is a player that Leeds now can depend on. Something that's a little bit different from last year is the fact that you got these youngsters, but they're that year older and a year riper, shall we say. They're good to really actually start to impact games and, of course, have the hunger. From a tactical perspective, an aspect of his play I really enjoyed was his interplay with Brendan Aronson in the half spaces. The pair often combined well in those areas and were often able to progress the ball into the box with their combinations. We can see in their heat maps that they were often really, really close together on the pitch. And this is a real positive for Leeds fans because they now have a squad full of players that look like they're on the manager's side. And after back-to-back wins, Leeds might be set for an upset against Spurs next week. Tottenham 2, Liverpool 1, 1.21 to 1.18 XG, and there are still questions to be answered. Jekyll and Hyde springs to mind when describing the first and second half of this match. Tottenham's last 10 goals in all competitions now have come in the second halves of matches, whilst Liverpool dominated the first half but were penned in for what felt like the entirety of the second. This might be one where we need to consult the almighty momentum bar to reaffirm what we've said. The big question for Spurs is, do they start matches too negatively? I feel like they do. I think that's obvious now. Not just is that part of the strategy, it feels like it has to be a little bit, but is that to save energy? What is it? I'm confused by it, and it feels like it's going to continue to hurt Spurs because they are noticeably struggling when it comes to chance creation in the first half, and almost they need to go down a goal to get themselves into gear. Conte, after the game, said that his side losing the game was an unfair result. I don't think he has a case, though, because of how bland Spurs were in the first half. Spurs have Leeds at home next. This might be the perfect game to give Kulesevski his first start since coming back. Kulesevski looked excellent when he came on against Liverpool, and having him back in the side is going to be a huge, huge blessing. We may even see a front three in the Leeds game with Perisic as the left-sided option. What Liverpool did well in this game that Spurs didn't do was take their chances. Liverpool had 2 big chances in this match, while Spurs had 4. The difference maker was ultimately Mo Salah in this match. With Spurs playing wing-backs, it gave Liverpool overloads in the wide attacking areas, which Salah thrives from. With Sessegnon often attempting to close down Trent, it gave Salah space to work with, and Salah has often struggled for space this season. That's what we were talking about on the fallout 2 weeks ago, I think, after the Leeds game, or was that even last week? I can't even remember. Because teams were targeting him and limiting where he could receive the ball. But in this game, he was vintage Salah, receiving the ball near the touchline in the first phase of play before moving into more advanced areas. It meant that Salah was often not picked up and allowed him to take 3 shots in the game and scored 2 goals, of course. You can also see from the average positions that Darwin Núñez stayed on that left-hand side and had that space all to himself. He got a lot of joy in almost like a left wing forward, which we did talk about. But he was great. He was fantastic. He was effective in this game. It's going to be interesting to see if this preferred setup would continue to work against teams that fullbacks sit a lot deeper. One thing's for sure, that this setup gives Darwin Núñez that space. So do you think, this is the question for Liverpool fans, do you now prefer this setup once everyone is fit? Let me know in the comments below. Respectfully, please. Please don't just call me clueless. That'd be great. Much love. We spoke about it at the start of the video. Let's now reveal Chelsea's problem, because Potter wasn't able to work his magic in this one against Arsenal, with his side looking unsure on the ball and they lacked creativity. Graham Potter tried to match Arsenal's tactics in terms of shape and structure, which worked for a period of time, with Thomas Partey often having 3 or 4 players surrounding him, which resulted in Arsenal not being able to move the ball as easily as they did, of course, against Nottingham Forest, where he had literally the whole centre of the pitch to himself. This worked well for Chelsea to an extent, but the problem was that they were too focused on preventing Arsenal from playing that they forgot to attack themselves a little bit. This is where the graphic from earlier comes in. We can see that Mount, Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Jorginho often stayed really close together to limit central possession for Arsenal. But because they were so focused on their off-the-ball duties, it really, really hindered any creativity that they had. Would it be unfair to say that Chelsea were playing for a draw in this game? I don't think so, because they were so concerned with what Arsenal had to do, which again is a huge marker of where Arsenal have got to at this moment in time. This pass map highlights 2 important things. Firstly, Aubameyang is lost. He only mustered 8 touches in 64 minutes. That demonstrates that Saliba had him in his pocket, and that Aubameyang might be getting forced into this team at the moment because he's a new signing and because Potter feels like he has to play him a little bit. The second aspect that I wanted to look at, and let me know, Chelsea fans, if you agree with that one, because I think also the thing is that they're struggling to get the ball to Aubameyang, so that's why he hasn't got many touches. But the second aspect that I wanted to look at is about Arsenal, and importantly, how important Saliba is. Not only is his circle sizable, that sounds like an innuendo in some way, I don't know how, maybe it's just my mind, it's been a while, forget it. which means that he had a lot of touches, but the colour of the circle is quite red, which means that he probably needs to get some cream for it. And it also, I'm joking, it's quite red because it paints out how involved in XG chain he is, or was, sorry, in this game. This shows that not only is Saliba competent defensively, but he's also very indirectly important in Arsenal's attack and how they play through the thirds. As I said at the start of the video, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunities that come my way. I don't forget it. I won't forget it. Let me know how you feel about your team in the comments down below, and make sure you check out the World Cup previews that begin in earnest tomorrow. If you don't want to miss them, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and hit the like button on this video. Feeling super, super generous. Thanks again. Goodbye.